Now, moving right along, we are going to introduce very shortly here our very first keynote speaker of the day, Rachael Silvano. She is the Community Operations Manager at Zapier. Did you know that their tagline, by the way, is Zapier makes you happier? I wish I could have just made that up, right, on the spot, but it's actually their tagline, so I didn't. Okay, so Rachel's going to come out right away, but before she does, let's make sure we give her a big hyped up welcome. So let me ask you a few questions. Oh, yes, I love that already. We're going to do that in 1 second. Let me ask you a few questions, and if you think the answer for you is yes, shout out yes! Okay, so have you met anyone new already today?
Yes!
Well, that was a pretty good first one. Okay, are you excited to be here today?
Yes!
Do you love community?
Yes!
Okay, Rachel's going to come out and she's going to tell us when to say no to community.
You all are such a great audience. I gotta be honest, and it's so refreshing because it's like 3 a.m. my time, and I got here yesterday. And then I went out for dinner with a Zapier customer of ours who is like a really cool AI guy, and that dinner lasted 4 hours. But I'm stoked to be here today. And this is when to say no to community. We'll have a lot of fun AI-generated monsters throughout here. So if you're like, hey, this looks really weird, it's supposed to. So as mentioned, my name is Rachael. I'm the Community Operations Manager at Zapier. I've been at Zapier for about 4 years, and interestingly, I actually started on Zapier's support community, which is hosted on and cited by Gainsight. It's a massive support community, millions and millions of visitors a month. But more recently, and those of you in the community space might have heard about this, I've launched a community of practice for Zapier called the Zapier Wizards Guild. It is super cool. Our artwork is like really fun. I am a really big Dungeons and Dragons nerd. So yeah, I love it, and like any typical thing. So a big inspiration for the Wizards Guild was that. But that's not why I'm here today. Again, I'm here to say no to a lot of things. And before I launch into the stories that we'll talk about, I need to give co-collaborator and co-peer credit to Jillian Betlick, who is, let's hear it for Jillian. She's the director of community over at Calendly, and she and I co-created this presentation, and I really owe it all to her. So we're going to be telling some stories today. I'm going to get down so you guys can see the slides. I'm going to be telling you some stories today about really well-intentioned leaders and managers who really wanted to start a community. Their heart's in the right place. And the reason I'm telling these stories today is for a few reasons. One is I think the best advocacy comes from ourselves and starts with us. I also think community as an industry really struggles with equity and with consistency of things like titling and roles and responsibilities, as probably a lot of you know. And these stories are relatively anonymized, but Jillian and I have combined about 30 years in the community industry, and these are all stories we've run across. So these are kind of meant to be those beige flags for y'all today, that if you're interviewing for a new job or if you're in a job and you're like, man, that sounds like me, you'll get some tools to help navigate when a community might not be the best solution or when you might need to pivot a little bit. So our first story, who needs value? So Arnaldo is stoked. He's on his first day of his first community job. He landed it. He's so excited. And he walks into the office the first day and gets the digital keys to his new community for tracking software. And get this, this is not even the best part. Tracking software, it's a premium community. It costs $100 a month to join. And Arnaldo's like, okay, but like there's a free Reddit and a free Discord that are already really active. And the manager goes, no, this is premium. People are going to pay $100 to join this community. And he's like, but like, did you talk to any customers? And then he goes, okay, Mike Truck, CEO of Trucking Logistics, why did you want this community? And Mike Truck thinks for a second. He goes, well, the other trucking logistics software, they had a community. So now we have a community too. And so in this case, I think that a lot of community managers come in when value is misidentified, and somebody wants a community and they want it overnight. So a lot of this is guiding your leaders and the people that are hiring you into understanding community best practices. And one of those that might not be charging a premium fee for a community that's just started. So leading with value instead of expecting people to pay to join your premium community that you have. Chapter 2, I love these angry faces, they're so angry. I'm not sure. This one's really fascinating, and this story that I'm going to tell is about Felix. Felix is a senior community practitioner, and they joined as a community manager for an investment company. And they really struggle because in this company, what you share is your intellectual property, and they're very sensitive about sharing this information. And so Felix goes to their manager, and they say, hey, we're really not getting a lot of people in our forums that are talking. And their manager goes, just create more organic growth. Just keep posting. You keep posting and people will follow. And Felix goes, well, I've actually done some one-on-ones with people in this community, and they've really said that they're not comfortable sharing. They don't feel like they're safe when they're posting something asynchronously that someone could just copy and paste and move. And now this story is actually one that I've also I worked for a pharmaceutical supply chain company, and one of the things that I learned in this company and really had to evangelize frequently was that our community members were not going to share asynchronously. There was some laws in some countries that prohibited them from sharing how they were doing their supply chain management. There was competitive work that was going to prohibit how they did supply chain management. What worked in this situation for me was moving it to only non-recorded live calls. And so this is a good example of when the no to community is no to one brand of community. It's this asynchronous forum-based dialogue. These members still really wanted to share, they really wanted to learn best practices, but we had to pivot our thinking in that situation to say, how do we set it up so that sharing isn't a risk for our members? So that was an interesting one. Chapter three, I also love this one. We'll have pizza. So Martha is interviewing for a new community manager role. And she's asking her interview panel, okay, so like they're building an AI community. She's like, well, by now, AI is kind of a noisy space. And the team that Martha's interviewing with says, we have a really great kids program. It's like so good. We've got so many prizes for people, and we've partnered with a pizza company. We have Pizza Fridays. Martha's like, great, I love pizza. But what's the value? Like, what are people going to actually be doing in this community? And like, well, that's what you get to decide. We'll have the prizes. And she's like, okay, but like, what's the strategy? Like, where did you kind of lead with the value that this AI community is going to be delivering to people? And they go, there's a leaderboard. People love leaderboards. It's a great idea, right? Gamification, I'm super passionate about it. I've written quite extensively about it. And it's a really great tool. Gamification does not make it a community, right? It's a tool, it's a part of it. So in this situation with Martha, I think there's some interesting conversations to have up front, and including leveraging that enthusiasm, saying like, I'm so excited that y'all are putting this time and money and investment into your gamification program. But gamification is like a little part of it. Let's think about like the larger strategy of what you're working on and how we can build that out. Also, by the way, just to know, I will be taking some questions at the end, so. This one is one that's really close to my heart, and this is not quite a no. This is a person that is working in a community, and they think it's going really, really well. They're like, their time to first answer is down, it's a support community. They even had their new trial users have to go to the community for answers. Super awesome stuff. However, the narrativization of that community was so poorly executed that that team went from 10 to 1 in a reduction in force. And I think reduction in force and layoffs are something that a lot of us are experiencing right now. And that workaround, just because it is something that you care about as a community manager, the leveling up to executives, to leadership, to continually say this is why what our community does is valuable to the organization is critical.
So this one isn't so much of a time where we're saying no to community. It's where we're really thinking about what are we demonstrating, what are we projecting out about the success of our community. And this one is of also particular interest because with AI and with like faster support queues and using AI for that kind of learning, I think there's a real risk. And I think we have to talk about what are our communities doing. Our communities are human beings, and we're really uniquely suited to do that type of work. So I've chatted about some of these throughout the presentation, but I wanted to really dive a little deeper into some of these tactics that Jillian and I sort of put together when we were thinking about, okay, so you're interviewing for a job or you're at a job, and these are some of the ways that you can navigate the no. One of my big favorite ones is cultivating cultural capital really early on in relationships, and that helps you say no but, or like yes kind of. At Zapier, we are a completely remote company, so everybody does everything through Slack. A big thing that I try to do, especially if I'm getting a vibe from somebody that they're gonna ask me for a lot of things, is just like vibe with them for a bit and be like, hey, like, what do you like? And like, how was your weekend? And I think that when you get to know somebody authentically and you're actually building a relationship, it makes the no a lot more contextual, right? Because you're not saying like, okay, you just want like the community to suddenly be a place for your product launches and for beta testing and for 1,000 other things. I'm saying, I love that idea. I think that's really smart. I think that's really smart. But let's back up a bit and let's see what we can do to kind of make this more community oriented. That's a conversation I have really frequently, is how can we make this community oriented? Like for example, right now my community department sits under marketing, which is pretty novel to me. I used to sit under product and support, and you can sit kind of anywhere. But marketing's a weird one, and a lot of times I'm having to navigate really tricky no's with people that want to use the community as like a brand launch pad. And I have to do a lot of educating around like, love that we're doing something weird and cool, super stoked about you trying that out. Our community is gonna see that, and they're gonna see that I'm like, hey everybody, I'm with Zapier. And that's gonna be super weird, and they're like, that's no longer an authentic relationship. And we have to lead with value. So for example, in the Wizards Guild, we're an AI community of practice. If you can give them an AI case study, that's gonna be way more valuable than us just saying like, hey, we launched a new thing. Like show them how it's relevant for them first. So that's a lot of the yes but, like yes down the road. Another one that I think is really important for us all to kind of internalize is being reasonable with ourselves. This was a big one that Jillian and I were thinking about in our careers, is very often teams of one or maybe two. There's very often that I'm having a conversation with my manager where I'm saying, hey, I'm just a little old me. Okay, I love this slide too. My fiance owns a used bookstore in Western Maine. It's the cutest thing of all time. And he reads Lord of the Rings once a year, the entire series. And he quotes this all the time, even the wise cannot see all ends. I've talked a lot about saying no today, and I've talked a lot about awkward situations and bad jobs. We've all had bad jobs. I've had bad community jobs. But I think if there's one thing I can take away with y'all today, it's that every opportunity is a learning opportunity. Even if you're in a job right now that feels like, man, I have like all of these beige flags, they suck. You can still grow in those places, and there's still a lot of value to be had. And like relying on these folks in this room can really help that. Right on time. Heck yeah. All right, yeah, thank you. Cool. Rad. Y'all are so nice. I'll take any questions if there are any, but it's kind of like a story presentation, so. Dope. All right, cool. I'm gonna bounce. All right. Thanks, y'all. See you around.